Hi, this is Juliana, founder of Scaletime, and today we're going to talk about calibrating your compass. And what I mean by that is people waste a lot of time and energy because oftentimes they just don't know where they are in the journey of their business. And they don't know how they are compared to others, which leads to a lot of failed attempts due to lack of clarity, wasted money, hiring the wrong people, making the wrong decisions. And one of the main questions that hundreds of agencies have asked me is, how am I doing compared to others? And what we're going to do today is really shine a light on that comparison mode in the best way so that you guys can benchmark where you are. And we're going to go through the scaling matrix. Then we're going to calibrate how we view our achievements and chart the path with our scale map. So in terms of the scaling matrix, people, as they're talking about their systems and their processes, can be basically, for a lot of agencies, kind of put into these three buckets, right? We have the micro, which is less than $1 million, right? A lot of these are solopreneurs or solos with remote freelancers and workers. And, there could be a combination of these things, but, these are just kind of our general buckets just to get sort of some benchmarks. And then we have the small businesses that are 1 to 10 million. And this is where, as the owner, you have to start taking on sort of the leadership and the strategic role in the business. And then we have our mediums, which are 10 million plus, right? Which are the visionaries. Now, as the CEOs, founders of your business, what you are managing is resources and revenue, right? And so when we think about how we're managing those things, right? And resources can include everything from people and clients and, just all the parts of the different businesses that you are managing, right? How are you doing this? So when we think about, a business in its maturity that's really under $1 million, solo to small team, you're managing invoices, right? A lot of the time, you're just kind of managing what comes in, what comes out. We're matching it, we're paying it. Okay, we're good. Let's figure out what's left over, right? So there's not a lot of calculation when it comes to finances. It really is more like addition and subtraction. When it comes to client managing, you're really, kind of managing a lot of direct sales. And direct selling is referrals, networking, speaking, things of that nature. Just kind of getting the word out one-on-one. For quality assurance, I have not seen a lot of quality assurance in this level. There usually tends to be testimonials, right? Which aren't really for quality. They're mostly for marketing, but that is kind of the most feedback, if we can think about it, that a lot of people are collecting. Marketing, again, referrals, as we're doing that, how we're managing that, and those referrals again to that one-on-one. Productivity, how you're managing productivity, it's really around organization and time management, right? A lot of individuals are like, well, I need to manage my time better, and not really thinking about their resources as a whole. And in terms of the team, there's a lot of collaboration, freelancers, remote work, and there's obviously this in the other ones as well. But we're going to say that the chunk of it, the 80-20, is going to be that. So that's on the micro level. So if you're in that level, that's totally great. You're looking to kind of up level how you're managing those resources. Now, when you are in sort of this middle category, you've got a team set up because you've had to, right? You're managing more resources and you're managing more revenue, obviously, right? So the management becomes higher, which is why a lot of businesses plateau, right? A lot of the times that businesses plateau at the 1 million level is because they don't want to manage more. They don't want to become HR, right? Like they lose love with the business because they're no longer doing the things that excite them, that they're in love with, because they're stuck in the grind, right? And in terms of finances, what we see is that you're managing cash flow, right? It's accounting and budgets, and now you've gotten a little bit more sophisticated with your finances, and so you're managing reports, hopefully. Whether a lot of them are historically looking, hopefully you're doing something for the future, right? And you're starting to take a look at that profit margin in this level. For client management, now you're starting to manage sales pipelines as leads are coming in. You're like, okay, now we have to do some managing of that. And then quality assurance, at this level you start to get feedback, and sometimes, a lot of times, it's in the form of surveys. Sometimes it could be, whether they're verbal or written or templatized, we start to get some kind of surveying of customer information. Marketing, you're starting to see digital marketing and social media. Some sort or kind of marketing to be done so that sales teams can grow. You're trying to get yourself out of the sales, at least the grunt of the sales work, and trying to really create some marketing there and some lead generation. Then we have, for productivity, you really start to leverage workflows and tools. Right? And this is where I see a lot of individuals starting to read books like The E-Myth and Traction and, Built to Sell, and really, the Checklist Manifesto, and start to figure out, okay, how do we make things more efficient? What tools are we using? We're leveraging applications. We're starting to take a look at things in a more robust manner. And as far as the team, you begin to do recruiting and really start to think about your team in an intentional manner. This tends to happen around, employee 5 or 7, where you start thinking about the intentionality of your culture. Then for the bigger businesses, which are medium, which is 10 million plus, agencies tend to be more sophisticated. And what I have seen with agencies is that we really start to see this column more at 7 million. But, this is where the individual founder really starts thinking of themselves as the visionary. And we start to think about our finances as financial projections. In this point, you might be thinking about exit. You might be thinking about, holding a board seat, going on to your next adventure, your next business. So you really start thinking about your financial projections, your performance statements, things of that nature. We start to get more sophisticated with the math of our business. Instead of looking at just sales, we start looking at the entire customer life cycle. Right? Investing, more money into the retention, the growing of the long-term value of the customer. What does the customer journey look like, as opposed to just pre-sale or pre-deal? Of quality assurance, there's definitely an emphasis on gathering more business intelligence, doing more data analytics, getting more information from the customers, both as leads and during the customer journey, potentially even at exit, so that we can compile out all that information and start looking to see how are you going to feedback loop it into the other parts of the business. For marketing, you start to see not only digital marketing, but really production, right? Digital production, advertisement media, and growth opportunities, not only for the business, but for the founder. Thinking of the founder sometimes, or key employees in the business, as top of the funnel, if you would say. Then for productivity, right? Our workflows and tools then start to become production and capacity management. You start to think about, okay, when do we need to hire individuals based on, our sales pipeline? How, at what point do our account managers reach overwhelm. We start to tier clients so that we can effectively understand the capacity that the individuals that take to serve them have. So this starts to take on a much more sophisticated level of productivity and measurement. And for the team, right, this is the great part where you are no longer human resources. You tend to outsource that to human resources, and you start looking at your team from a performance level. And if you are in any of these stages, now, of course, we can have, mid-sized businesses who might not be as sophisticated in one thing or the other, or micro businesses that are hyper sophisticated in certain things, right? So this is not the end all be all, but this is just to give us a baseline and a benchmark so you can see where you are at. And if you are sort of in the solo arena, right, your mission during this program is to create a team. Right? That is really the mission, to get yourself as much out of delivery and any of the tediousness of the business as possible. Right? That's your mission. If you are in the small category, your mission is to create a people-proof engine. You have a team, right? But as we know, common sense does not exist. It does not, I promise you guys. And so what we want to do is people-proof the workflows and the tools and the systems and the processes that you already have, right? We want to take that to the whole new level where it is a people-proof engine, and creating a saleable process where, we get super cutthroat in terms of what the process looks like, getting it really efficient, lean, mean, and making it saleable. And if you are in the medium category, your thing is complete turnkey oversight. You want to make sure that you have that business intelligence, those dashboards and everything on point, so that no matter where you are in the world, no matter what other endeavor you are taking upon after this program, that you have complete and utter oversight. Because I have seen so many businesses in this category have to scale way back down because of lack of oversight. So we are making sure that that sustainability not only holds, but it grows, and that it grows without you. Now, James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, said one of my favorite quotes about systems. He said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, but you do fail to the level of your systems." And as we're going through the program, you're going to hear me talk a lot about results and outcomes. And I am hyper goal driven, but your systems are what's going to give you the sustainability, because your goals will change. And the goals that you had coming into this program, maybe 2-3 weeks in, you're going to be like, oh my God, that was peanuts. Like, done, check, what's next? So those systems are what's going to give you the sustainability for the business. And as we create the systems, I want you guys to know that almost like in our matrix, every single system, whether it's documentation or tools or applications or metrics, there's going to be levels to them, right? First level is you have to create it. I know that sounds really simple, but sometimes, you might have excellent project management systems, but no sales systems, or vice versa. So the first thing is to create the system. And know that it is going to be a messy, grudgy, chaotic bowl of blah, blah, blah. But it is going to be so worth it, because then what happens is you get to clean it up and standardize it, right? And when you standardize, I not only mean standardize the templates or the tools, but also standardize the monitoring and reviewing and the consistency of that system across your team. Right? Because what we find is that sometimes you create a process or system, but not everybody uses it, right? And so that doesn't give us the brand that we need, so that clients are participating with and engaging with all the different touch points of your business in a consistent way, right? Which is why we need standardization. So Standardizing not only across the system itself, but across your team. And then lastly is optimization. And in our last training, I talked about you need to really have process before automation, which is why I put automation in parentheses, because if not, you're going to waste a lot of time and money and energy. And we want to make sure that, once you have a process that's functioning, once you've sort of beta tested and stress tested your system and your process, then you can automate it. And then it's going to be like, oh my God, it's going to be so good. And it's going to be like the reward, the cherry on top. But automating before you have any kind of standardization is just throwing money away. And we don't want to do that. I get very, very protective of my members, clients, money and their budgets. So I want to make sure that we are not only saving money, but we're protecting that profitability at all costs. Okay, as we are calibrating your compass, I want you guys to celebrate the wins. And this really does take like a whole slide, because what we have is a culture, we're in this hustle culture, and I am so I'm so responsible for it too, right? I am like, oh my God, I'm looking to accomplish a goal. I accomplish the goal, and then boom, like I completely am on to the next thing. So I want to make sure that in this program, we are all celebrating our wins. At the end of this journey, the goal is to have 35, if you're international, 40 if you're in the US, hours a week of reclaimed time, right? And so we're going to pick out the goal, whether it's growth in marketing, a vacation, health and love, like wherever you're putting those additional time and capacity in, right? That's what we're aiming for, and we're going to track it, and we're going to win, guys. Now, your systems are more sustainable than your goals. And if you guys remember James Clear, I also want you to think everything is iterative. Everything is uncomfortable. I want you to revel in the breakdown of breakthroughs, right? Things are going to get ugly. Understand that. That is normal. And I want you to revel in it, because when you create order and structure in the business, it is going to be so worth it. And mind the achievement gap. So this is what I was talking about in terms of hustle culture. We want to make sure that we take a step to celebrate ourselves and our team before just jumping on to the next goal. Right? I want you to focus on the progress, and I want you to share with the community. So here is the task for the community. I want you guys to find a Giphy. If not, then you can tag, Freedom at Scaletime, or Nikki. She is our coordinator, and she is like our Giphy queen. If you can't find a Giphy, she will find one for you, promise you. And in the community, I want you to put a gong Giphy. Okay, I want us to celebrate and memorialize the wins. So if you've offloaded 5 hours of work that week, boom, I want you to put the gong Giphy. If your team has implemented a system, boom, I want you to do the gong Giphy. And if you make a hire, or you have an overdue fire, and I know that sounds a little, for your team members listening to this, hey guys, if you guys are listening to this, you're probably the cream of the crop because you're listening to it. And as everyone knows, sometimes we allow people to stay in the organization because of fear, because of lack of systems, because of lack of trust in the work, but it kills morale. So, when we do fire someone who is overdue and expired, past their date, and we know that we had to let them go, we are creating an opportunity for profitability. We're creating an opportunity for the rest of the team, to get promoted and to step up and to up level, and for your entire business to grow. So that VC mindset, if you make a hire or you have an overdue fire, I want you guys to ring the gong. Okay, I'm super excited about this, and I just want to see gongs going off in the community like all day, every day. Lastly, our skill map. Here's where we're going to chart the course. Now, you're going to go to skill map in the next module, and what it is, it's an assessment, and it's going to do a 360 view of your business. Everything from lead generation to client onboarding to team performance. And it's going to ask you about 10 questions per different part of your business. And just remember, there's no right or wrong answers. It is just a snapshot of where you are. And afterwards, you'll get a visual. We'll do this at the beginning of the course. We'll do this at the end, because this really is charting the course to freedom. Now, if the assessment is taking you longer than 20 minutes, even if you're with your team, a lot of people like this, as a beginning team exercise, they just kind of like want to, get their systems gladiator in there, or maybe, a couple of people in the team or several systems gladiators, depending on how big you guys are and how you're doing this. If you guys, individual or team, are taking longer than 20 minutes, you are having feelings about it. Okay? Let that sink in. Longer than 20 minutes equals feelings. And we just want the data. Think about this like tax time. All right, you're just handing in your numbers. There's no feelings around it. So go through it. We're going to get a benchmark. We're going to see how you are, because we're going to chart the course to freedom and kicking ass. All right, I'm super excited. See you guys in the next training.